This is the show that freaks you out about the Leadville 100. This isn't intentional. It's really just a funny line, but we get it. The weeks leading into the Leadville 100 can be stressful. For me, the anxiety really ramps up in the hours before a race, or whenever I'm training poorly, or when I miss a couple days on the bike and just don't get that endorphin rush that I'm used to, but it can creep up anytime.
Yeah, for me, it's usually away from the bike that my brain starts spinning on all manner of topics. What I'm going to do about some house issue. Did I set up my brakes properly? Did I do a good job on the podcast? Now, these don't sound like massive issues, but it is mental garbage I could do without.
You and I sound like normal people living normal lives, which means sometimes we got to calm things down. And when that happens, Hottie and I like to add some CBD to the situation. Floyd's of Leadville has all sorts of stuff to help take the edge off, whether that might be during the night, or nights, in my case, before a race or after a stressful day at work. You grab a couple of capsules or the tincture and let Floyd's handle some of that mental baggage I can do without.
A little CBD along with other techniques like meditation or just finding a few quiet minutes can smooth things out and help you get the rest you need on the eve of your next start line or after closing time. Go to floydsofleadville.com, use that code FATTY at checkout for a 15% discount.
And thanks Floyd's of Leadville for sponsoring this show.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Floyd's of Leadville. It is season 4, episode 15 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest and hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I'm Michael Houghton, Hottie to most.
I am Fatty, and this is an episode where I think some people may be freaked out a little bit. Hottie, when back in the old days when we used to watch network television and the announcer would say, "We interrupt our regular programming for a special report." And this episode's like that. We've been telling stories most of the season, but we are interrupting that flow for an update from the Leadville Race Series. And we are talking about changes to this year's start and the course. Race Director Mike Melley will have some crucial information for your race this August. So let's get some business out of the way and get to it.
Right. I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to bike product. Like, I hang on to old stuff out of that just-in-case mentality. Maybe I'll hang on to that 7-speed cassette just in case that drivetrain makes a comeback. That kind of thinking, ridiculous. Yes, but harmless for the most part. The one area, though, where I need to rid this habit, this hoarder habit, is with helmets. There's no good reason to hold on to an old helmet.
I have at least half a dozen old helmets. In a recent newsletter from our friends at Shimano, they talked about when to replace a helmet. Shimano has a partnership with Laser Helmets, and that is why that info was included in the newsletter. The obvious time to replace a helmet is after a crash because the helmet has done its job. Get rid of it.
Laser says due to their exposure to UV light, helmets eventually need to be replaced. And some of those signs are the following. The outer shell is cracked or separating from the helmet foam. The helmet foam itself is dented. Helmet straps are fraying. Buckle or fit system becomes cracked. The fit system is no longer fixed to the helmet shell itself. On MIPS equipped helmets, that is, any of those tabs holding the MIPS system in place are no longer fixed to the helmet shell. That's another sign that you probably should replace that thing. I always heard that a helmet has a life of about 2 years, and that's right in the middle of Laser's recommendations of replacing head protection every year to 3 years, depending on use.
Check out all of Shimano's performance-enhancing components at bike.shimano.com, and for a new helmet, it is lasersport.us.
You have probably heard by now, the 2021 Leadville Trail 100 will have a different look and a feel. The start format is all new, and there are new turns on the course.
And to explain the what and the why, we have Race Director Mike Melley on. Mike has a much bigger title than Race Director as far as lifetime is concerned, but for you and me, He is our race director. In addition to the Leadville Race Series, Mike has owned a race production company, and he was chairman of the Mountain Bike Association of Arizona. And like Hadi and me, he has a nickname that you'll hear during this interview. Mike Melley is his name, but you can call him Melley. Melley, it's been a busy day for you, I am sure, and so we really appreciate you joining and talking with us about some of the important changes to the race this year.
Yeah, it's been a busy time for sure, but I appreciate it, the ability to hop on the show, and pleasure talking with you guys.
Absolutely. So we're going to kind of try to take this a little bit not alphabetical, chronological. Packet pickup. Let's start with that. I imagine there's some changes to how we are going to get our race plates and the expo and so forth. Tell us what's going on there.
So for those of you that participated with us in 2019, we were able, our CEO, quite passionate about the town, about the race series, et cetera, raced it numerous times, Brahma Karate. He acquired, Lifetime acquired more property within Leadville proper. So we have now another set of properties off of 6th to the east side of Harrison, near where the old gym is. It's a big gravel lot. We put down some gravel in there. We hosted a proper expo, in my opinion, versus having our athletes come through retail and then walk down another half a block to go pick up their T-shirt, etc. We actually had some landscape to settle in and host our sponsors, host some other vendors, and host a packet pickup outdoors. That will continue in 2021. We'll have a similar expo area. We're excited to host people at that expo area and continue to grow it a little bit more. So we'll have an outdoor packet pickup where you can get your goodies and information and your T-shirts all in one spot rather than sending you around the block.
What's your expectation as far as riders and participants go, as far as wearing a mask, distancing? What's kind of the COVID protocol for the expo, the packet pickup, and the race in general?
So in general, we got notice before we started our Leadville Marathon and Heavy Half in June that we were allowed to, our athletes were allowed to compete without having to wear a mask. They were allowed to line up without having a mask. There were no requirements for that just in advance of the marathon, which was in line with what the public health officials were saying in town. If athletes choose to wear a mask, that's entirely up to them. And so we're excited to be able to see smiling faces and teeth.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that too. So tell us a little bit about the pre-race meeting. I got the email and saw on the website that it is going to be outside this year. Frankly, that sounds really great. As someone who has been in a very hot, stuffy gym for 20 plus years, I am looking forward to being outside.
Well, I can appreciate both angles on it, because having been in that gym many times and trying to run around and make sure that we got some airflow in there and open up every single door that we possibly could, shoving a rock wherever we could, I'm excited to be outside as well from that angle. I'm a little nervous about some of the potential weather that could always roll in Colorado, but I also think that we can deal with and utilize technology if worse comes to worse. But the school has requested that we do not utilize the gym, in part because of close quarters. I also have a significant number of students in there to make sure that we are providing a safe environment for their students as well as for our athletes. We opted to go outside. We worked with the school to utilize their football field. The football field will offer up a spectacular backdrop of Mount Elbert. We'll have a fairly large SL100 stage with the video screen wall. For those of you that have seen that in the past, we'll have that outside as well. So hopefully the fresh air coupled with some decent sound and some video will still enable Ken to get us all riled up and ready to rock on the starting line.
I'm sure he will. He doesn't have a problem with that, which is great. Just Ken's speech always gets us motivated. Sometimes I just play it for fun, Fatty. I'll just turn it on and go, oh yeah, I got to remember to keep pushing forward. There's another big change, and this is something we actually heard about several years ago, at least 3 years ago, that the racer is considering, and that's wave starts. Now, wave starts are going to happen this year, as you announced to the racers today, and I think they're fairly easy to follow. Looks like you have a wave one, the pros and the folks in silver going off at 6:30 a.m. as per usual. Then 2 minutes behind them, the red will roll, and then you go off in 3-minute increments, working your way all the way back to the white corral. So it seems fairly straightforward how you're doing that. My question though is, what problem are you trying to solve with wave starts, and what's your goal by having wave starts?
It's a really good question. So you're right. This topic has been kicked around for a long period of time, probably even in advance of 2018. There's two main reasons for it. One, athlete safety. Two, athlete experience. If you looked across our events over the years, you see people going, hey, too crowded in this location, particularly coming up St. Kevin's, conga line, da-da-da-da. Trying to spread that out as much as we can, as early as we can. Second one, COVID, spreading people out a little bit more, that helps. And then just safety as far as numbers getting off the line from the get-go. There's going to be challenges with this no matter what. Change is certainly not something that people embrace, particularly with a historic event like this. But, the growth of the town, the growth of the event kind of predicates that we have to modify some of how we're doing business and some of how we're conducting the race. I think one of the early questions that both of you gentlemen had was, hey, is this here to stay? Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it all flows, how the athlete flow goes and goes on. There was a lot of uproar when Ironman switched to rolling starts with versus a mass start on the swim. Ultimately, I think it was embraced by the community after a little while of really seeing how it played out in terms of safety and everything else.
So I think it's worth probably zooming out for just a second to talk about how the Leadville 100 has never been a static course. The first time I did this race, there was for one thing, there was 400 of us. There was not 1,600 of us. And after we came down from Carter, there was a little piece of single track that everyone had to Congo line up. That's gone, And so the race has changed many times throughout the years to accommodate changes in the environment and in the number of people. So change has always been part of the Leadville 100. What I am trying to picture now is the starting line experience, right? So we arrive at, say 5:30 in the morning, like I normally do. Personally, I'm getting into the green corral, and then sort of take me from there, from 5:30 until when I go off. I'm imagining, unlike other years, the corral line dividers aren't going to drop. I'm curious, is there going to still be a shotgun for every 2, then 3, then 4 minutes? Things like that. So sort of walk me through from 5:30 until I roll.
We will likely hold people back with the lines. We're not gonna drop it and then move up and drop it and drop. We would move with the line as it moves forward. We still need to work through some of the mechanics of that to make sure that it's as safe as possible. We want to clear the street as quickly as we can as well. So picture gold and silver go off. Next one will move up slowly. Next one move up slowly and move with the line and the tape. It's been done across many other events. That's current thought process. Don't hold me to it. That may change slightly. Shotgun every wave. As much as Ken loves his shotgun, I'm pretty sure he's not going to want to shoot that thing 7 times.
Oh, see if you can convince him otherwise. Everyone wants a shotgun to start their day at this race.
That doesn't take too much convincing, but I don't know that's, the neighborhood would really like that. We also have to consider that we have, a small community, and we want to make sure that we're doing right by the citizens, and hearing 7 shotgun blasts at 6:30 in the morning is not something that's normal.
Okay, fair enough. So after I start rolling, is there going to be a vehicle escort at in front of each wave or just in front of the first wave?
Just in front of the first wave. The amount of resources it would take to make sure that we get a vehicle out for one wave, back for the next wave, and back for the next wave. Quite simply, again, we're dealing with a very small community. We have limited resources in terms of being able to provide that same experience every single time. It's not really feasible.
So your message to riders right now, at least as the plan sits, is get in your corral, stay in your corral. We'll help you move, make those steps ahead until it is your time in kind of that starting block. It's almost like, it sounds a bit like a cross-country mountain bike race, if anybody's familiar with that. Would that be a fair analogy, I should say, Melley?
Yeah, 100% agreed. And ironic that you're considering a cross-country mountain bike race, right?
Yep. It honestly, what I'm picturing as we're talking about this is the start for Crusher and the Tusher, which is now, of course, a lifetime race. And that race has started really well for many, many years with the wave starts. And like Leadville, the Crusher and the Tusher starts with a fair amount of pavement. And if everyone were to start together, it would be truly a crush. So I'm happy. This is something, Hadi, we've talked with Chemo before, and I've advocated for the wave start. So those of you who don't want this, you can have a conversation with me. I'm excited for this. I'm hoping that it works really well, and that, of course, there will be refinements in following years, but I'm hoping that it becomes a permanent part of the race so that everyone has a little bit more elbow room to get their best possible finish time at the Leadville 100.
I'll back up 1 second back to the wave starts just to make sure that we cover off on a point that I think is fairly important. And Fatty, I think you touched on it early, is that we go from a 2-minute gap to a 3-minute gap to a 3-minute gap, and then another 3, and then it goes 4 and 4. The rationale behind that is those corrals get a little bit bigger, and we want to make sure that we give ample amount of space in between each. That's why it's not a consistent number across all.
All right, should we roll the course changes then, gentlemen? I mean, I think that's it's getting a lot of the talk right now. And Melley, it sounds like the course is the same as we know it, all the way out through Twin Lakes, over the dam, and then we run into our first change. Am I right on course there? No pun intended?
100%. You're right on, Hadi, in terms of, yes, through Twin, everything's pretty much the same as it has been historically. The first real change outbound is when you, where we would normally cross private property, we're going to be taking a left turn towards Lost Canyon Road. Now,
this happens, Fatty, and I was trying to jog your memory and mine by looking at some of the satellite maps today. If folks who have raced the course will know, you cross the Twin Lakes Dam, you get on some double track, you kind of do a nice tricky section in there that's rocky, that's loose, that takes some bike skills. You're in a somewhat forested area. That as soon as you kind of come out of the trees and start to get a good look at the prairie in front of you, and you have Columbine on your mind and maybe in your eyesight at that point, you come to a spot where we used to take a right and then a left and then enter the alternate feed zone, Twin Lakes alternate feed zone. Instead of making that right, you're going to make a left, and it's going to feel like, instead of going towards Columbine, you're going away from Columbine. In fact, it's going to feel like you're going to the 24, maybe even back to Leadville for that matter. Melley,
don't do that.
Yeah, don't ride completely back to Leadville, but certainly follow the course signs, and the ribbons should be out there. I think they're pink usually. The ribbons should be pink and black, right? The ribbons you want to follow. And again, you're going to kind of be going back towards Leadville a little bit. It's going to feel a little bit strange. Melley, this section here that avoids the private property, it does add mileage, does it not?
For sure.
Now, can you describe how this little section here works? What should folks be watching for? How will it feel? How will it look?
It's right about mile 42. To your point, you would normally be taking a right and then cutting across some private property. We're taking a left. You're on more of a graded road. You're headed down towards Lost Canyon Road, which is a little bit, north and east, I believe. And then you're going to hit Lost Canyon Road for a very short distance in time. But essentially, you're making that short jaunt down there in part to change to make sure that we stay off the private property and make sure that and then you hit Lost Canyon for a brief second because there's a lot of traffic on that, and then we push back towards the power lines. We don't jump immediately onto the power lines because that is still, there's a little strip of private property that we would still be crossing, and it's still the same owner. So that's why we're doing that weird jump down to Lost Canyon and then back up to the power lines.
Yeah, when you say power line, you don't mean the power line that we all know. This is another section of power lines that move across this section of the course.
Yes, you are 100% correct. I don't want to confuse anybody with that. That is not the power line. It is a set of power lines.
And once we turn back southbound, we're headed back towards that main road folks will know that takes you onto the Columbine climb at that point. And we turn right on that main road, just like you would had you come through the private property and through Twin Lakes Alternate. You turn right on that main road. It's a gradual kind of straight road that goes up before you make that hard left that takes you onto the Columbine climb proper. And then we're back to normal.
Correct. And that road that you take the right on is Forest Road 398 or Lost Canyon Road.
So a question having to do with this, and I am terrible at visualizing things like this, so I'll just ask outright. Does the Twin Lakes alternate feed zone change in any way, or can I expect to see Hottie where I see him normally?
Well,
I don't know where Hottie normally is.
Well, I'm at Twin Lakes Alternate, and I think the answer might be no, but Twin Lakes Alternate, is positioned right there as you come through the fence line out of the private property. And I assume that's going to be gone or moved.
So it is east of where it would normally be in terms of where you would come across the property. The junction of that power line road in 398 is going to be, so that would be kind of the alternate, if you will, aid station location.
So Twin Lakes Alternate will be at the new power line road and 398. It's going to be somewhere in there. Do you know if it'll be on the double track or will it be on the main road on 398 itself?
I don't know that right now.
So TBD. There's still things for us to figure out here. But those of us who, it sounds like there will be a Twin Lakes alternate feed zone. So that's what matters to me. That is not being eliminated. It's just going to be in a different location. We can figure out the where a little bit later. Let's get to the next course change. The turnaround is going to be a little bit earlier this year than it has been before. If I'm picturing it right, normally we get to the highest point in the Leadville 100 up on Columbine, and then we descend for a couple hundred feet before we get to the cabin, and then do sort of a big cul-de-sac style turnaround and head right back up that super steep little grunt of a pitch that suddenly seems like it's twice as steep as it was 2 minutes ago. By making the course turnaround a little shorter, you make it so that the course isn't a lot longer. It's only 1 mile longer than it otherwise would be with the other changes. Am I picturing correctly where this is? Do we actually, in fact, eliminate that quick little drop and return climb?
Yes, that's accurate. So in the past, you would go all the way down to that cabin. You'd kind of crest, and then you'd go, okay, I'm at the top, and then you'd go, oh man, they're going to send me over there to that cabin. Oh, okay. Well, I'll motivate and get ready because I'm going to be at the cabin. I'm going to see some friends and turn around. This is more of if you zoom in on the maps that are posted online, you'll see a gigantic kind of triangle area that we can utilize and kind of spread out a little bit more. The elevation gain does not really change significantly. I think it's less than 100 feet between previously and current course maps. So you don't lose any gain in elevation, and you don't have to come back up the hill, let alone go down the hill to the cabin and back.
Yeah, that little hill that Fatty was talking about was in fact, we would always tell folks, do not stop at the halfway point because you got to climb out of it. And if you stop if you're in big trouble, but our advice was always not stop. Now we can throw that advice out the window, Fatty, which is great. You will, folks, have to stay to your right as you enter the little triangle Melley mentioned. There's just a little turnaround triangle, kind of a little three-sided 360 that you're going to roll around. Just stay to your right, work your way around it, and the volunteers will be up there to whistle you on and make sure you're okay and send you back down the Columbine descent. And the descent and those, I gather, will remain the same. And then, of course, we're going to now start double backing on ourselves Fatty, I didn't want to cut you off there. Did you have anything more you wanted to ask about the new spot on Columbine?
Well, I'm going to 100% disagree with you on it's okay now to stop, but we can have that conversation later. I would say keep going. But that is neither here nor there right now. We'll schedule that argument for another time. But I do want to I want to know, Melley, how much I guess sooner is the turnaround than previously? Is it, would you say, quarter mile difference, a half mile difference? What?
I think when we calculated it out, it was about 1.5. That's 0.75 down, 0.75 back.
So there is you are going 3/4 of a mile less to get to the turnaround point at this point, is what I'm understanding, right? Okay. So that's how we went from this would otherwise be the Leadville 107 now.
Exactly. Yeah, and I would likely be hanging from a tree, and Ken would be hitting me with his shotgun and shooting at me at the same time. If we did it at 107 and then didn't do anything with buckle cutoffs, I'm sure the social media and or the rest of the entire population that races this race would be really super excited about 9 hours and 12 hours and how they're going to make up the delta with 107 miles. That turnaround in part is to shorten and make sure that we don't get too far out of compliance with where we've been historically.
All right, so now we're coming down Columbine, and again, we got to remember the new course change as we come off of the Columbine climb, or Columbine descent it is now, of course. We're back on the 398, and we go past what was our left-hand turn where the old alternate feed was. We go down a little bit further. I can't really tell on the map how much difference this is, but we'll figure that out eventually. And you make this left-hand turn. It's going to be double track. There should be some power lines that you see as you enter this left-hander. And now we're just on the return. Melley, you've looked at this double track section, by the way, down here where we're skipping the private property, this new section. It is double track, correct? Am I correct in saying that?
I haven't laid eyes on it personally. As many of you know, our previous race director took a job with Ironman. So I haven't seen this section personally. I saw pictures of it. I did see that it looked like it was double track. It's not going to be single track. I can almost guarantee that. If you look at the satellite images, it definitely looks like particularly as you head towards Lost Canyon, it's double. I don't know how rough, I can't speak to that, how rough it is or is not. That's
actually good information right there. And so this is something we can put a pin in for right now, but longer doesn't always necessarily mean slower, right? If my interest on this segment, this unknown segment, is it a faster rolling segment, or is it longer and slower? It's going to affect our times one way or the other. I'm curious which it is. Would love to hear from listeners who have been on that part of the course, their perspective on how it feels, if it seems like you are spending about the same amount of time out there, a lot longer, a lot less.
I don't think you're going to get less time out of this one. Just my own 2 cents of knowing the area. I don't think you're going to gain area or gain time here, but perhaps in the next section that we get to.
Yeah, and let's get to that next section because that's important. After Twin Lakes inbound, you are climbing up the pavement for a bit, down on the wide graded dirt road, and then it is usually you turn left and you are getting onto the single track heading toward Pipeline. This time, however, because, if I understand correctly, because of the wave starts, there is a stronger likelihood of people being outbound on that single track, which makes going inbound on that single track really infeasible. And so you need to have a reroute for people who are inbound to not conflict with the outbound. That makes sense?
So you are correct. That section of single track is super fun outbound. It's a little bit dicey coming back inbound for the pointy tip of the spear. Those that are off the front. Historically speaking, we've stood right by what we affectionately call Little Stinker and had to cut people outbound as the pointy tip of the spear or the leaders are coming back in. And we sent them down the road over to Twin Lakes, and it's not a good athlete experience from that perspective. So what this allows us to do is make sure everybody gets the same experience outbound, assuming that they're going to be making cutoffs. And then on the inbound section, they'll take County Road 10. So back to your question earlier, Fatty, about, hey, am I going to be able to, how's it roll? Is it faster? This is going to be a faster section than going back up single track, going through Little Stinker. It's going to allow for a little bit more of time back, your time back in a good way. You'll be allowed, you could probably pace line there if you were smart and sat in on somebody and save some energy. And hopefully that helps you out in the long run and helps mitigate a little bit of the additional 1 mile that we're adding in. And then it takes you back up. So County Road 10, and you take a left. Let me make sure I get that road name correct there.
I think it's the 136 Sage Draw Road. I think that's the name of it, Melley. Am I right on that one?
Yeah, let me double check.
We've got all our maps out here. I have my Leadville folding map out, the official race course map, Google Maps up. By the way, folks, the maps are all linked on the Leadville Race Series page. If you go to the Leadville Trail 100 section of the page, scroll down, find these new announcements. Melley and his team have put both the old map and the new map up so you can do side-by-side comparisons, which is how I'm basically conducting this podcast.
The County Road 136, that's the road that you're going to take a left on off of 10, and then you're going to cut back over to where you were before. So, yeah.
And that cuts out Little Stinker, which is a relief to a lot of people who have had to push their bikes up that thing, at least on inbound. You still have to go outbound. You got to go down it still, but coming back up it, boy, that thing was, I don't know. Fatty, can you clean that thing? Not on a single speed, you can't, but maybe otherwise.
I want to make sure I understand what Little Stinker is. You're not talking about Clavicle Hill, are you?
That sounds very similar to what Little Stinker will do to you.
Yeah. Okay, so no, certainly on a single speed, I cannot clear Clavicle Hill or Little Stinker or whatever it is called. On a geared bike, I am probably about 1 out of every 10 able to. It just depends on how recently it's rained and whether it's loose and washed out. So we are going to be missing that grunt of a walking of a hike-a-bike on the way back in. Did I understand that right?
Merry Christmas.
Oh man, this is going to be the best Leadville ever. This race hurts enough. I don't need the things that make it additionally painful. So, for those of you who are like super stoked for Clavicle Hill, go hike it the day before, I guess. Earn your extra pain that way. Okay, so, and from that point on, the race continues the same. You haven't added like a new second boulevard or anything like that. It is, from there on out, it is the traditional Leadville 100 experience, right?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Glad to hear that there is no like second lap of the boulevard or anything like that. That seems like something Ken would do.
Yeah.
We love having Envy around as one of our sponsors, and it's nice to hear that many of our listeners have put Envy wheels on their Leadville mountain bike builds. The M525 is just an ideal wheel set for the Leadville Trail 100.
Yeah, it definitely is. But we get it. And so does Envy. The M525 is high-end, and it has a price tag to match. And price tag is one of the reasons Envy came up with the AM30. A do-everything wheel set, still carbon, still tubeless, still made in the USA, but it comes in at just about $1,000 less.
Yeah, the AM30 is part of Envy's Foundation Series. In addition to the mountain wheel set, the Foundation Series also includes 2 road wheel sets with a much lower price point. And the AM30 comes in 29 and 27.5 inch. They're built with Industry 9 hubs and a design change that I really appreciate, and that's external nipples, so the wheels can be trued without pulling the rim tape off.
Yeah, the rims are still very wide, 30 millimeters internal, so you will want to run at least a 2.3-inch tire, and that'll do the trick at Leadville for sure. Is the AM30 an ideal cross-country wheel set? No. But it is going to be great for everyday use. And our friend at Envy, Jake Pantone, said not to worry, they'll be addressing the needs of Leadvillers in the Foundation Series at some point.
You can learn more about all of Envy's wheels and components at Envy. That's enve.com. And if you get that longer lead time warning when you put your wheels in the cart, check out some of Envy's dealers. The bigger dealers keep wheels in stock. You can find the dealer list on the NV website.
Hadi, I have a pressing question for you. Do you always wear bib shorts when riding or just when on the road or racing?
If the ride calls for a chamois, then yeah, it's bibs. They just, hold the shorts up in place like I want them. When don't need a chamois, I might not ride anything, any Lycra at all for that matter. But definitely, if it's a bib ride, if it's a chamois ride, I wear the bibs. How about you?
Well, I'm still trying to get the image of my mind of when you said I don't wear anything at all. I'm like, please.
There's something, just not traditional bike shorts. Let's put it that way.
Perfect. For me, I always wear bibs. And if I'm on the road or riding alone, hot outside, it's a race day, long day in the saddle, DNA bibs for sure, and a close-fitting DNA jersey. But for rides when it's just stop or go or having fun or the weather's getting cooler, I really like to have the DNA free ride baggies over them, which I wear on just over any DNA bibs that I happen to own. They're exactly the right fit for a mountain bike ride, a little loose, not too baggy, and the crotch doesn't hang up on the nose of the saddle, which is important. I am combining those with a DNA free ride jersey, a real favorite of mine. It's the same quality as the technical fabric you expect from DNA, but it's a loose pullover with a 3/4 sleeve. It's comfortable, a little less nerdy than riding in a tight jersey, which is nice on days when you're just out mountain biking for fun.
And you can find both the free ride gear and the nerdier cycling clothes that leave little to the imagination, but they work obviously over at dnacycling.com.
Premium quality, affordable prices, award-winning designs from the USA, products made in Italy. You simply can't beat DNA.
All right, back to race director Mike Melley and any changes now that we are going to see in the feed zones. Plus, we're going to take a look at cutoff times as well.
I am interested because of the timing of when people start is changing, and we're going to get to cutoff times in a bit. But at what time of the day will the 12-hour shotgun be fired? Will it be fired at 6:30 in the afternoon or at 6:49 in the afternoon?
I believe, as we have done historically, we keep it at 6:30 in the PM, noting that all buckle times are based on your chip time. So if someone starts in the second wave, let's call it at 6:32, they have until 6:32 PM before their buckle time would be negated. They'd be at 12:01 and they would not be able to get a buckle. They'd get a finisher medal, but not a buckle.
But the cutoff times themselves, say I'm Twin Lakes outbound and I'm close, everyone's got an extra 15 minutes there, as I understand correctly. Whether you started in gold or in white, you have 15 minutes more than you've had in previous years?
Correct. Course cutoff times have been modified by 15 minutes. Now, some people may go, hey, the full wave is 19. Why'd you go 15? In the past, those cutoff times have always been trying to be as lenient, but yet stay on kind of roundish numbers. So that's why we're sticking by the 15, and we're going to stay with 15 for the year.
So really, it's not that everyone gets 15 extra minutes. Gold and silver have an extra 15 minutes of cutoff time, and it becomes progressively less extra. But the cutoff times have been shifted 15 minutes for everyone to just be 15 minutes later in general. No one has appreciably less time to make it through the cutoffs. If you're going to make the 2019 cutoff, you're going to make the 2021 cutoff as well.
Except for maybe in the back where they're not getting that 19 minutes, they're getting 15.
White might be the only argument that has look, I lost a few minutes on the cutoff time. And that would be true. They're getting a few minutes taken away from them to get to the various cutoff spots along the course.
Yeah, about 4 minutes, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Work harder, guys. That's okay. That's all we can say. All right. Let's talk about the crew zones and the crew size and talk a little bit about the finish line. Now, it looks like everyone can have 2 crew members and 1 crew vehicle. That's per racer. I think I understand that. I am interested if I can, I have a daughter, a son, and his wife coming just to cheer me on, and am curious, can they just come along on the course to ring a cowbell and so forth? Is there anything preventing fans from being out on the course to cheer folks on?
You asked some really good questions. So let me back it up by just a bit. So 1 course vehicle, 1 crew vehicle, 2 members per. If you know anything about this race, crewing is exciting, it's fun. It's also challenging from the standpoint of parking, from the standpoint of getting around, making sure that you're meeting your rider in a timely manner. It can get very nerve-wracking for crews, probably more so than the athlete knows 99% of the time, right? Along with private property in terms of adjusting course, and I apologize, I was running, so now I'm breathing super heavy. I had to get my family in the door. Along with private property, there's private property that we're utilizing at Twin Lakes for additional parking. We don't have that same access anymore, so we have reduced parking, thus the need for 1 crew vehicle per athlete and the use of hang tags. The crew members, in terms of trying to reduce the number of people out there, crowding, athletes, etc., that's what we're striving for, to make sure that we don't have an overly crowded area, whether that's Twin Lakes or other areas on course where people would normally come to spectate. We're trying to reduce and minimize that as part of our permit with U.S. Forest Service, as part of working with the community at large. So ideally, we are down to 2 crew members, 1 vehicle.
Before it was you would hand out vehicle passes, and then folks could bring as many people as they want. That's the big change here, right, Melley?
Yeah. Well, I don't even know that we did a good job with monitoring hang tags in the past, because we didn't have as many restrictions as we currently do. But to abide by that and try to make sure that we are, being good stewards of our permit and being good stewards of the community and those around us, that's the path that we have to take. Okay,
so there's the honor system, and we hope people will just comply. But is there going to be some type of monitoring this? So somebody out there watching things, law enforcement, you guys, how is that going to be juggled?
We're going to be monitoring as best as we possibly can. We've got, certainly we have various staff and volunteers and security on site in different areas. So again, this event is predicated on making sure that we're abiding by our permit, and the longevity of the event is in part is only going to be possible with close coordination, communication with our athletes, and trying to make sure that they help us be able to put on a good, fun, safe event as we look forward.
How about, Carter Aid has always been looked at as an unofficial stop on the race. And how is that being managed? Is that under the guise of 1 vehicle, 2 crew members? Is that going to run as normal? How do you see Carter Aid functioning?
I see it functioning under the same guise as everything else. 1 crew, two per. I would prefer that. I mean, that's not an ideal spot to really be crewing at, in my opinion. You got vehicles going up and down, still have open roads. Make sure our athletes are aware of that. You have other people that, are not associated with the race, that don't really care for the race, that still want to use their public lands. And it's kind of an odd spot to be hanging out or in the road in general. So I don't think that's really the best spot. Hagerman, I think, would probably be a little bit better.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point here, Melley, that this race continuing to be something that other people in the area appreciate and enjoy and tolerate. We need to make sure that we behave in such a way that they don't start obstructing this race in official and unofficial ways from happening. So yeah, that's something that is on every single racer. With all of that in mind, is it okay for just along the trail, near the fish hatchery, near the near Carter Lake, or just as along the boulevard, for race supporters, for fans, for friends, for family to come and hike out there and get out a cowbell and cheer folks on?
The course is open. We are dealing with public lands. There's much that we can try to do our best in terms of mitigating traffic and trying to make sure that we are enforcing people to abide by one crew vehicle and two crew members. But there's definitely areas of the course where there's opportunity for, in a positive way, see your rider and connect with them at a personal level. It takes a little bit of digging around some maps and making sure that you're not obstructing, whether it's Leadville locals or just other homeowners in the area or businesses in the area, to make sure that, again, we have really good community relations out there, and we can continue that as we look forward. That's important to us. The community is what helps make this happen. The volunteers help make it happen. The athletes do make it happen, hands down. But for it to continue, we need to play nice with everybody.
And then we have the start-finish, of course. Is that, again, are we talking a two crew member only situation? A lot of folks obviously like to be there in the morning, help their riders get rolling, and then they return in the afternoon and welcome them. Do you want people to stick to the two crew member situation there, or are we a little more open in downtown Leadville?
We're a little more open there. I mean, we definitely want people to be able to spectate and see their rider. Ideally, it's not, 20 people at a time. Again, you're dealing with a very small community. We have roughly 2,700 residents in town. We almost double that just with our own, with the race. We're talking 1,800-ish riders. So we're at 2/3 of the normal capacity of normal residents in town. So making sure that people are cognizant of, hey, this is a small community. That's awesome. But hey, this is a small community, and that can also bring some challenges with it. We got to make sure that we're doing right by the locals and still embracing the event, and still, we want people to feel like Leadville is special and that they're not overly regulated to the point where they can't bring their athlete across the line and celebrate with their family, our family, if you will, from the athlete's perspective. So, let's just not get overly crowded down there. It's fun to celebrate with everybody, and I think that's a good idea. And there's room to spread out. We have the expo area, which will be open post-race finish to be able to go up and grab some food as well. So we're trying to utilize that area to spread people out as much as we possibly can, and make sure that people have a little bit more open space.
And then for the rider, as they're coming up the red carpet, I mean, one of the first things they think about is, I'm going to see whoever here's welcome me, get my medal from Mara Lee. Then I go over to the tent. I get some oranges, food, whatever. Is that the same? Is Mara Lee going to be there with my medal? Am I going to be able to have access to that tent that sits on the, I forget what building that is there, but you guys have a tent set up with food and refreshments. That all normal?
Mara Lee, absolutely, 100% will be there. She's been at every finish line that we've had for every race this year. She wouldn't miss it for the world. So I suspect 100% you're going to be getting that hug from her, and she'll be waiting there for the medal, as she always will, for as long as she possibly can. The tent out on the courthouse lawn will likely be there, but we'll have some food more in the expo area, which is a little bit more to the east side, up off of 6th and Harrison. So on the other side of Harrison, to really, again, that's the expo area, spread people out, give them the ability to lounge a little bit more, and we'll have some post-race recovery and food up that way.
And that finish line vibe, I mean, I was at another race over the weekend. I was thinking, man, this doesn't have the right vibe. The vibe I'm thinking about is the Leadville finish line vibe. One of the great things that the race does is they announce racers as they come across the line. Like, that means so much. I know it doesn't mean much maybe to a pro, although maybe it does now since they're all like privateers. But for the rest of us who are coming in 595th place or wherever we are, it means a lot. Has that is it your intention, Melley, to keep that vibe what it's been all these years?
100%. So, before I was married to my wife, my brother-in-law had been announcing for Leadville Race Series. He still announces for them. He will be at the event, despite the fact that he has twins due in a matter of weeks or a week. But he'll be there at the event. And if you're unfortunate enough, you may have me on the microphone calling you across the line if he needs a potty break. But yes, 100%. We want to keep that vibe and try and keep that going and keep the stoke going so that people are excited to be in Leadville and they know that red carpet, when they cross that line, when they tackle that 100 mountain or those 100 miles and go up that mountain, those passes, that family is waiting for you at the finish line.
I got to say, as a father of twins, I remember being a young father of twins well enough that there is a good chance you might have to take over because he nods off and starts and falls asleep at that microphone. There is just not a lot of rest. He sits down, his head's going to nod. Well, I don't know. Maybe at Leadville, that is one place that is an exception. Wow. Super excited for this. So let's talk a little bit about how the length of this race, it's a mile longer, is going to change things for a few people who are sort of at the edge of getting a sub-9 finish, or at the edge of getting that under 12-hour finish, or at the edge of getting a 13-hour finish. It's a mile longer, and it may be easiest to round that to say it's about 5 minutes longer. That's going to mean, looking at previous year times, there might be 20 fewer people who get the sub-9 hour, the big gold buckle, 15 or so people getting fewer getting the silver buckle, and a sort of commensurate number of people who don't get a finish time at all. Is there any intention to accommodate that, or is that this is the course and you have to finish it under those times to get the prize?
This is the course. And I think Ken would probably tell you the same.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I'm happy to hear that. I'd be a little bit disappointed if it became the 9 hour and 5 minute buckle. It just doesn't have the same weight to it as the 9 hour buckle or the 12-hour buckle. It would mean 5 minutes less. If you have to work a little bit harder, you work a little harder. If you don't get it, you come back next year and be 5 minutes faster.
It's the timing of the announcement in terms of the changes is not ideal. We're only a month and some change out, but again, to the point earlier in the discussion, change is inevitable. This has not been the same course all the time. We've had to make changes in the past. I suspect we'll have to make changes as we look forward at some point in time as well. And part of it is these are the guidelines, and sticking by the 9 and the 12. If we were to say the 9:05, I think Ken would shoot me on that front. But we talked about the changes in the cutoffs with Ken and Marilee, and we made sure that they understood the logic behind them and the discussions that Tim and Rich both had with Forest Service as we led up to this event, and they understood it, and they said, "Yeah, we understand that makes sense."
Let's just talk about overall if there's a message you have for Leadville racers, their families who's showing up into Leadville for this 2021 year. Is there something just in general you want them to keep in mind as they're there in the community? Can they do their other normal things like go out to restaurants and hang out together? Is all that stuff fine with you folks, or do you have a particular message about that at all?
I think the vast majority of people in town and businesses in town are excited to have races back, and certainly having more business in town is good. The town has grown over the pandemic. There's more development on the north side of town. There's development pretty much anywhere you look. There are businesses that came through the pandemic and are still doing very well. There are some that are maybe not doing as well, or may have gone by the wayside, but they appreciate the business. They love having the athletes in town, but they also would say, "Hey, listen, like they need to respect Leadville," and that's not a jab at every one of our athletes, but that is, hey, when you're in town, people really like having the athletes, but they don't like having the athletes changing their front yard. Let's be mindful of that. Let's be good citizens of our sport, citizens of this series, citizens of just public life, and just making sure that we're doing right by what you would do in front of your mom and dad. Let's do it in Leadville. Let's make sure that we're taking care of people properly, take care of them like family. So that I would kind of reiterate to make sure that we're doing right by the town. Secondly to that, hey, I don't want to go picking up trash out there. If you got goo out there, make sure you slip it back into your respective pockets and take it home. Pack it in, pack it out. Crew members do the same. Be respectful of the timelines that we have out there. Don't set up stuff early out at Twin Lakes or other areas where it can get blown away, taken down, etc. Be smart when you're driving through town. Obey the speed limits. Don't drive crazy. All the little stuff that, you would do in a normal area. Let's do that. And let's make sure we have a damn good time while we do it.
I think that is a great final thought. Melley, it has been such a pleasure talking with you. It's so much great information in this. Looking forward to seeing you in just a couple of weeks at the starting line.
Yeah, give me a shout when you're in town.
Again, thanks to Leadville Race Director Mike Melley for being on the show. We have a lot more to talk about here, folks, and probably a lot of our listeners would like to ask questions as well. So while we're going to wrap this episode, we're really just starting to talk about this 2021 Leadville Trail 100 course and the feed zones and the start line and the waves. We are working on a Q&A episode, and we'd love to have your questions. Ask in the Leadville 100 participants page on Facebook, message us on Twitter, or join our Slack channel, the Leadville Slack workspace. You'll find it at leadville100podcast.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we close, though, Hottie, I want to talk a little bit about fitness and choices, specifically my fitness and the choices I am making and about how I'm using my time. I'm busy lately. You know that. Anyone who knows me knows that. And I'm a very disorganized person. And so there are things I can and should do that I don't do because I'm not willing to add one more item to my fitness to-do list. For example, a few years ago when Jonathan Vaughters was coaching me for the Leadville 100, he had me on a regimen of supplements. It made a difference too, but in the years since then, I've completely let all of that slip.
That's too bad. Didn't they do a lot of good for you?
Yeah, they did, for sure. I had one of my fastest years ever, but inventory maintenance and hassle of getting out several jars daily and assembling them into little weekly pill boxes. It was just, a little bit of a hassle, and I let it go.
Sounds like you need a personal assistant, a fitness concierge of sorts.
I could use someone like that in more than just the training part of my life. Absolutely.
Or, and hear me out here, you could just try the feed formulas. The feed has taken the convenience they've applied to simplifying your race nutrition and applied it to your race supplements. All the supplements an athlete should be taking daily, already curated into individual packets you can just take with breakfast. And since you can subscribe to this, you don't even have to order each month. It just arrives. This is really the easiest, best way for racers to get the supplements they need.
Yeah. The fact is, I actually just did subscribe to the athlete formula with the feed, and Hottie, I got to say the convenience alone is worth it. I don't have to figure out what supplements or how many or how often or anything. The experts at the feed took care of all of that. And this might be a small thing, but it comes in a really nice looking box with a magnetic lid closure. It's very Apple-like, actually. But what this means for me is that it's not an eyesore in my kitchen, and it's not hard to get to each morning. And the packets are super easy to tear open. So all in all, start to end, it's a really easy, well thought out experience for getting my supplements. So I'm getting my Swiss RX multivitamin, my Swiss RX omega-3, and my Pori D3 vitamin D every single day now. I just started this last week, so, results on this TBD, but I will definitely be giving updates on how this works for me in future episodes.
And of course, our listeners can get a great deal on the feed formulas as well as everything else at the feed. Just go to thefeed.com/Leadville to get signed up.
One last time, big thanks to Leadville Race Director Mike Melley. And we look forward to talking more about the things that we learned in this episode. We're still digesting it, folks. So we want to hear what you think. Please let us know. You can do that. I am at Fat Cyclist on Twitter. Hottie, you are Michael Houghton on Instagram. Is that right?
That is correct. And of course, we're both on the Facebook Leadville 100 Mountain Bike Participants page.
And one last time, if you got a question for us that you want to have a conversation, want to dig in to the details of something we talked about here, and we think you probably will want to for this one, join our Slack channel. You're going to find it, a link to it at least, over at the Leadville100podcast.com site.
If you like the show, go to wherever you listen and give us a 5-star rating and write a review. To see all the ways you can find the show, it's pod.link/Leadville.
Good luck in what remains of your training. Thanks so much for listening, and we are going to see you in just a few weeks, sometime between 6:30 and 6:49 at the starting line.